Okay, hello everybody. Welcome to Korean Atlanta Mentorship. And I don't know if you knew this, but there's a news report from 2024 that says Americans now owe more than $1 trillion on their credit cards um, as a collective. And I think that's wow, that's crazy because that just means we're really addicted to debt. And you know how Dave Ramsey has kind of been saying the same thing for like however long he's been doing Dave Ramsey? I feel like because so many people are like addicted to debt, I'll never run out of content to make. In fact, I could just make the same content over and over again, and I could just kind of expand my whatever it is I'm doing. And one of the things that I thought was like, what if I had, a center where I just take away all of your stuff, and you only get like a laptop computer, an Excel spreadsheet, and maybe like a budget, and then you just do velocity banking over and over again, and that'll be like a velocity banking debt addiction treatment center. Now, I'm not making fun of people or making light of people who have real addiction problems, but I think it would be cool if people were actually into that. And the other thing too, and I always say this, give me $10,000, right? But luckily, um, I'm too lazy to do that, so I'm just going to do it for free here today. So what we're going to do is learn how to pay off debt, treat that debt addiction using velocity banking. Because there's plenty of people out there who make great money, but they're in a lot of debt. And you know what's funny? Like I've been doing this so long, or actually, well, no, I don't want to say so long. I've only been doing this for about 8 months of YouTube, 9 months of YouTube. And I think because I've been doing this so many times, I equate six figures with being broke. And I know I shouldn't do that, right? But because so many people have sent me their budgets and spreadsheets about how they're six figures and broke, I just automatically now think, oh my goodness, six figures, you're broke, right? But that's actually not true because once upon a time, I used to make $20,000 a year. And I was like, I don't know. I always felt like that was more than enough. And now that the more that I more, let me say this, the more money I make, the more poor I feel. I don't know if anybody has ever felt that before, which is weird, right? Like you think the more money you make, the more freer you'd feel, but it's just, Parkinson's law, more money you make, the more money you spend. That's really the problem, right? And that's why people like this example gentleman who's making $120,000 a year is only, has a ton of debt and not that much in savings. Well, in proportion to the income, right? So basically, we've done a budget, right? So let's see what we have here: three credit cards, a student loan, an auto loan, a mortgage, food, insurance, gas, and our goal is to pay off $65,000 of debt. 300,000 or $200,000 of mortgage and $55,000 in loans. Now, here's the crazy thing, right? There are some people out there who are going into six figures to make this type of salary. So, like for example, I'm pretty sure there are doctors out there who have like $200,000 of student medical student loan debt and are only making, this amount, which is insane. And if you look at this here, this is only $30,000 of student loan debt. That's insane. Like I don't even know what to say. So again, this is probably why there's a lot of broke doctors, right? Probably because the rate return on investment for their education probably wasn't that much. And as you make more and more money, there's something called the marginal tax rate, meaning like the more money you make, and again, I'm not an accountant, so don't listen to me, the more you get taxed on the extra money that you make, right? Anyways, all right, so let's just get to it. So what are we doing right now? What am I just blabbing about? So what we're going to do is try to pay off our debts using something called velocity banking. And velocity banking is a strategy to pay off your debts quickly using lines of credit as your main tool, right? And we assume two things. The first thing is that we don't make more money, right? Making more money is fantastic, but just for demonstration purposes, we don't do it. And our savings is zero. And some of you might be thinking, that's insane. Why is your savings zero? You got to save 3 to 6 months because our line of credit will essentially serve as our savings account when we're paying off debt. Okay, so let's go ahead and do this. So there's two requirements when doing velocity banking. Number one is the budget. The whole point of the budget is that the budget is going to show where your leaks are, and the more debts that you pay off, that's going to increase your cash flow. And just from day one, if we just do a simple debt transfer and use our line of credit as our main operating account, then sky's the limit. Okay, so let's go to step two, right? So we have our budget. Step two is the line of credit as the main operating account. So what is a line of credit? All it is a financial tool where you can borrow money, pay back, and use it over and over again. That's essentially what a line of credit is, right? So do you have a credit card? That's a line of credit. But there's also other types of lines of credit, like personal, home equity, right? I have all of them. I have over $258,000 in lines of credit. In fact, I got to make a video about how I got $258,000 in lines of credit. I've been focusing on business credit, so my new $10,000 business credit card came in the mail a couple of days ago, and I've been using that for business things because that's what you're supposed to do for a business credit card, right? So now let's assume that our line of credit is actually going to be uh, a home equity line of credit. And if you don't know what a home equity line of credit, just think of it as like a credit card based on your house. So let's just assume we have this thing called home equity, right? We have this thing called home equity, and the bank, we go to the bank and they say, hey, you can borrow up to $100,000. But if you don't pay, we'll take your house or we'll try to foreclose, right? And here's the thing about like lenders, the last thing they want to do is usually foreclose. They don't want to because that's not their business model, right? If I was a lender, that's the last thing I want to do. I want to make sure that they pay me, payments over time because that's how I collect my interest, right? But okay, let's assume we have a credit card, kind of like a credit card based on our house. We can pay anything at a 10% interest rate, and the bank says, okay, we can borrow up to $100,000. Awesome, right? So now that we can do that, we're just going to make a couple of debt transfers. So how much debt do we have with the credit cards right here? We have about $55,000 of debt. So now all we got to do is transfer that. Let's transfer that $55,000. Okay? $55,000. Now what happens? This goes to zero, this goes to zero, bam. Okay? Now we got that. And then let's look at our expenses, okay? So just by doing a simple debt transfer, we were at $1,000 of savings. Now we're at zero savings, but we got $3,000 of cash flow to pay down our debt, right? Because the strategy, again, if you don't know what strategy is, it's you put your entire paycheck into that line of credit and then you take your expenses out and then you rinse and repeat and do it over and over again. That's all velocity banking is. So many people, I think, overcomplicate. It's like, well, do you need a savings account? What about high yield savings account? I heard that as a question. No, I don't do savings. Some people might teach you with savings just to have a little bit there. I don't. Why? Because if I need money, I just pull it from my line of credit, right? And let's say I don't make money for like 1 or 2 months, right? Well, the cool thing about a line of credit, or at least a personal home equity line of credit, is that you can rob Peter to pay Peter, right? What does that mean? If let's say you borrow $100 from a line of credit and $40 is due the next day, I don't even have to make any money. I could just borrow another $40 from the line of credit and pay it off the next month. Now, obviously, you don't want to do that because the interest is accruing, right? But you can do that, and that's the flexibility and the power of the line of credit. And what we're going to do is use our entire paycheck, our cash flow, to pay this down, okay? And I'm going to show you a couple of formulas that you can use that you just copy and paste to do this. So what you're going to do, okay? So this is going to be to get the next month's balance is the previous month's balance minus the previous month's interest, right? Minus our cash flow right here, so 32028.67, okay? And now we're going to go ahead and calculate the interest. The interest is calculated by the average daily balance, so we get the average of these two numbers, multiply it by the interest rate, zero point 0.1, and then divide by 12, right? And that's it. That's it, right? So we don't have any interest in the first month because you don't get the interest until the first statement comes out, and so we pay it here, and then now we ought to do is just copy and paste, right? And then once we see that red, that means it's completely paid off at this moment. So what it is at 20 months, okay? So at 20 months, we're to pay this off. So let's just write our milestones right here, right? Okay, so now it's 20 months. So now it's $55,000 of debt paid off in 20 months, 55K of debt. So we did that, bam, bam. That's less than 2 years, $55,000. That was easy, right? So now what we got to do is figure out, all right, well, am I going to pay the student loan, the auto loan, or the mortgage? Which one are you guys going to pay off, right? Which one? And that's what you got to decide. And here's the thing, there's two ways to figure out what debts you're going to pay off in what order, because one of the things you got to know about velocity banking is the debt payoff order, right? Because more debt paid off equals more cash flow, and you want to maximize the cash flow that is available when you just do that debt transfer or pay it off. Okay. So now, okay, let's go ahead and do this. Let's review the debt payoff criteria. You're going to look for debts that either have the lowest balance, highest interest rate, or highest payments, or basically um, any debt that fits in as much of these categories as possible, right? Or you could use something called the cash flow index, which is a statement balance over the monthly payment. And all that means is you're going to be given like numbers, and the lowest number is the one that you want to pay off. And then like the numbers have a meaning to them as well about like being an inefficient or efficient loan. But let's go ahead and figure out the statement balance at 20 months. And what we're going to do is at this stage, right? At this stage, we're going to go ahead and figure out what the balance is after 20 months, but we could go to calculator.net and we just type in loan amortization. Okay, that's really easy, right? Calculator.net loan amortization. And let's go ahead and figure this out. 30,000 at 4.5%. 4.5%, and the student loan is usually 10 years, okay? So that's 310.92, and then we're going to look at it at 20 months, right? Because that's the payoff. And sometimes, you got to look to so many places that, you look at something, you totally forget uh, what you just saw, kind of like walking into a room. Has this ever happened to you where you just walked into a room and you were supposed to do something and you totally forgot what you're supposed to do? Sometimes it happens to me when I'm doing this. But okay, so it's 25,000, and then let's do the auto loan, 25,000 at 5 years, right? Because the auto loan is usually 5 years. 25, there's a zero, and we're gonna do this at 4%. Now, here's the other thing too. When I'm doing like the auto loans and all that, I mean, it's really not that much interest, right? You don't, if you are paying 25,000 extra 2 grand, that I mean, I guess. But here's the thing: the car dealerships, they live for this 2 grand and maybe some other things that they get paid on when you get the loan, because they really don't like it when you don't finance, right? It's crazy how that works, that the car is an excuse to pay you, or I mean an excuse to give you a car loan. That's crazy how that works. But all right, so now we're at month 20, and now at 200 at 30 years. No, I'm sorry, not 30 years. At a 30-year mortgage, let's figure out what the balance is. So now 195, right? All right. So now what we're going to do is calculate that cash flow index, and let's just go ahead and do that. So the statement balance over the monthly payment, so it's 3.310 times 92, okay, and 17214.74 divided by 460.41, and then this one is 195,823.04 divided by 1200, okay? And as you can see here, and actually let me format this a little bit better. I think all those digits are a little bit scary, so let's just do it to two digits. Okay, so as you can see right here, this auto loan has the lowest number, right? And I'll tell you what this low number means. So think about this. Would you rather pay off $200,000 to get $1,200 back, or would you pay $17,000 to get 460 back? Which one gives you more bang for your buck, right? Of regardless of the interest rate, which one gives you more bang for your buck, right? That's really what the cash flow index is, and that's why it ignores the interest rate. And if you look at the website explanation, it tells you like, yeah, and although it's unintuitive, ignoring the interest rate, all that matters is results. So we're going to go ahead and pay this off. And so now let's go ahead, whoopsie, and pay this auto loan off, okay? And we're going to do that, and let's just move it to that line of credit. And let me highlight this so we know that this was the payoff, right? All right. So now what's our new cash flow? Because this is now paid off. Bam, zero. Oh my goodness, 348908. So remember how we're at like $1,000 of savings? it wasn't even 2 years, and now we like kind of it's like an explosion of cash flow, right? It's an explosion. All right, so now let's go ahead and do this. All right, so now we'll do that. All right, bam, bam. And now let's go ahead and figure this out. So take a look at this. We paid off our car loan after 5 months. Oh my goodness, this is so easy. My mind is blown. All right, so now what's our new milestone? Right, so this is we're gonna put this here. This is gonna be 25 months, and then an additional that'll be 25K, so that's gonna be 70K. Okay, it's mind blowing. And now look at these cash flow indexes. So we probably want to pay off the student loan first. Okay, now here's the thing. Here's my understanding of this. At this point, you could just do this, right? You can take your $3,000 of cash flow, and then essentially instead of putting it into a line of credit, you can put it directly into the student loan, and you'll save a lot of money, right? No doubt about that. But why are most people afraid to do that? Why are most people afraid to overpay loans? Because when you overpay a loan, you can't get it back. And then, people might say, well, why don't you use a credit card as a backup? The biggest issue that six-figure people have, or people with money have, if they're in debt, is something called segregation of income. So the fact that you add a payment, right, is going to prevent you from paying off your debts quickly. And I go over this in another video. Like segregation of income is a very powerful, I don't want to say tool because it's not like the banks are like, brainwashing you into doing it, but it's essentially what's happening. Paycheck comes into your checking account, and then, your money gets split all over the place. And having an extra payment is really a slippery slope when you use your credit card as a backup. I know it sounds crazy, right? But it's like, okay, use a seatbelt or use a bike helmet when you ride a bike, so makes the trip safer. Same thing with using a line of credit, even though it's a lower interest rate loan. Hopefully that makes sense. And if it doesn't, then you know I'm bad with analogies. Okay, so now at this point, we could just do little chunks and think about this. You just pay it, transfer $7,000 to line of credit, and then we'll just pay it off in like 2 months, right? That's $7,000. Now, here's the thing. In order to test our results, what's the optimum amount to move to the line of credit, luckily we have this velocity banking calculator that where I originally learned velocity banking from called Renatus, right? And I actually learned from it in 2017. 2017 is where I learned velocity banking from Renatus. I'm actually an independent contracted marketer, so full disclosure, I get paid. I get paid a commission if I sell their products. But anyways, so let's go ahead and use their calculator, and let's just fill in the details. Okay. So now the original balance is going to be or original balance is 30 and the current balance is actually at 25 months. We got to know what that balance is. So let's go ahead and take a look at that balance. So it'll be 30,000. It's going to be, what was it, 10 years? 10 years for that student loan, which is pretty sweet if you're making six figures or more than six figures, right? 4.5%. And then we're going to go to month 25. So month 25, we're going to be at 24 grand. So let's go ahead and copy and paste that. And here's the thing, the difference between loans and lines of credit is that the cash flow index with a credit card or line of credit, it usually stays the same throughout the life of that debt. Whereas with loans, the cash flow index always goes lower because the statement balance is lower compared to the payment because the payment's always fixed, right? So just be aware of that. And let's take a look at the new cash flow index, which is 24 809.85 divided by 310.92. So it's 79.79. You see how it went a little bit lower? All right, so now let's go ahead and put that information in 30,000 at 29 240809.5. All right, interest rate. Interest rate is 4.5%. And this is going to be for how many years? Um, how many years? All right, 10 years. Again, Sometimes I just do it and I completely forget. And then 310.92 is the payment, so 310.92. And again, let's just kind of test this, right? So what is my income? 7 grand. Okay, so 7 grand. And my living expenses is going to be what's my living expenses? Oh, $2,000. Actually, it's $2,000 plus the mortgage because we're not paying that off right now. So it's going to be 3,200. Okay, so 3,200. All right, so all right. So now let's take a look here. It's going to take us half a year to pay it off, and we reduce the interest from 4,700, okay, to about 410. Now here's the crazy thing. What if you use a credit card to do this, like a 30% credit card? Oh my goodness, like it doesn't really. It kind of doubles, but so it's like, yeah, it matters, but it doesn't really matter, right? 10. So again, your cash flow is what matters the most, but you can even do this with a credit card. Now, again, if you want to pay directly with your savings, you can certainly do that, right? All right, so now we did that for zero point 0.5 years, so now it's going to be uh, student loan, so it's going to be 30. Okay, so 25 plus 12. 25 plus 12 is 37. No, not 37 months. 31 months because it's plus 6 months because that's half a year. And then we paid that off in about, oh, I'm sorry, what, no, what's the total now? 30,000, so it's going to be 100,000, right? So crazy how we paid, we already paid off $100,000 in 31 months. Okay, so now the last thing here is essentially the mortgage. And look at this, 3,800 cash flow, it's insane, right? So now we got to decide, do we want to pay off our mortgage or get a rental property? Now here, that's the decision I made where I decided to get into rental property instead of paying off my mortgage, right? But yeah, so again, it's up to you, but let's just go ahead and say we're going to pay off this mortgage, right? So what's the mortgage balance at 31 months? Let's go ahead and calculate that at 30 months, and then it's going to be 6%, and which is going to be um, what's the balance at 31 months? 193. Okay. So now let's go ahead and figure that out. And it's crazy. You've been paying all this time and you only chipped away $7,000 of the debt. You ever look at how much you paid in interest? Like interest, and then take a look here. Yeah, so for it's about $12,000 of interest compared to $2,000 or $2,500 of principal, right? It's crazy how much you pay, um, even in a 6% mortgage. Okay, so now we've done that. And now what we're going to do is this is just going to be, we're going to focus on paying this off. So let's put it in our velocity banking calculator, 20000. And what's our current balance? 193. Whoopsie. All right. The interest rate is 6% and 30 years and 1,200 is the payment. And again, so we're going to use our line of credit. Now, since we paid this off, the only debt that we have to take into consideration, well, not the debt, the expense is everything except the loan we're paying off. So it's just going to be $2,000, right? So 2,000, and then take a look. Oh my goodness, 3.6 years to a paid off mortgage. Mind blown, right? And so now what we're going to do is just 31 months. So to figure this out, it's 31 divided by 12 plus 3.6 years, right? So 3.6. And so that's going to be 6.818 years, 6.18 years, and then we're debt free, right? And how much was that in total? That was $300,000 of debt in total, right? $300,000 of debt. And we did it in 6 years. We paid off the mortgage in three. It's crazy, right? I remember when I used to hear about velocity banking, pay off your mortgage in like 5 to 7 years. We did it in three, right? We did it in three. So, all right. Well, that's it for today. Um, I'll send you an invitation to the grand opening or Velocity Banking Debt Treatment Center. It's going to be next week. No, I'm just kidding. There is no debt treatment center. Um, but I hope you enjoyed this video. And also, if you're interested in joining our group, go ahead and click the Google form link below. And we'll get on a Zoom call and talk to you about whatever it is that I talk about. And maybe I'll just blab on for an hour and tell you, give me money, 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 money. Or maybe not. Okay. Well, anyways, I blabbed on long enough. Have a great day, and we'll speak on the next video.